Alrighty, looks like we might be live and alive. Metaphorically, metaphysically, metatastically. Who knows? Anyway, so I must admit that I have become somewhat interested, perhaps not in a good way, in this old fellow Warren Smith and his little shtick of what he thinks is apparently useful
Professor
or
Dave
good
has
or
3.8 million followers on YouTube.
what he seems to be doing on YouTube. And his perspective, if I will. I've become somewhat interested, and again, not necessarily in a positive manner, because I for the most part, what I've seen is not good. Again, I've watched one or two of his videos at this point. I've reviewed one of them, and I found it to be incredibly lacking in intellectual rigor, lacking in any actual strong philosophical uh, investigation or underpinnings, however you would, and just kind of weirdly dogmatic statements and kind of just so statements that uh, sound like they could be wisdom or sound like they could be, like something to them, and like, ooh, that sounds really, really interesting. But ultimately, it's not. Um, and I found it rather interesting. The again, usually you can kind of tell the. I hate to hold somebody accountable for their audience, but almost immediately you just kind of go down here, and it's fairly obvious. There's a lot of pseudo-intellectual, anti-trans discussion here. And pithy comments that ultimately don't really um, say much. So I'm kind of interested in that. Second, let me. Oh, hey, there we are. We're gonna get started here in just a sec. Still messing around with a couple of settings. It's annoying me, but it is what it is. All right. I think I can actually get the video a little bit down there and a little bit here. There we are. That's good enough. All right. Well, a little bit too big. Bring him down just a smidgen. There we go. All right. So, yeah, overall, I found Warren Smith to be incredibly lacking in the intellectual rigor that I would normally want to see from, again, somebody who wants to claim to be an academic. And again, yeah, I'm not exactly the most formal of individuals. I'm not the tweed jacket wearing classical professor kind of persona, but I do find that there is something really off-puttingly guru about this guy. It reminds me again kind of Jordan Peterson, but worse, because at least Jordan Peterson would say more, even if he's still saying not as much as he actually is, and ends up using 10 words when he actually only needs to use about 5. I think that's being generous to Peterson. Uh, But no, Warren Smith just kind of, there's something off-putting about it. But again, we'll try to approach this somewhat fairly. But I will put it forward is that so far I'm not particularly strong. And he also tries to take on the idea of centrist. I am a centrist. I am looking at things fairly and balanced. And it's like, that's nice to say, but it also is not going to be true. Nobody's ever really unbiased or perfectly balanced at all. You know, it's everyone's going to have their own initial kind of biases. Everyone's going to have this issue. So saying somehow I'm going to adopt this position is like this. No, no. What you're going to do is you're going to adopt a process that you hope is going to produce a more neutral thing, but it is always going to be somewhat biased. And that includes myself. I am not neutral. There is no neutrality. There is no perfect objectivity. At least not when it comes to humans trying to communicate to other humans or communicate or kind of involve other humans in an objective reality. Like there's not much there. Like there are some things that do exist, obviously, unambiguously. Rocks, trees, the air around us, shit like that. But our ability to communicate our sensations, our feelings, our like senses, our conceptualization of things, all of that stuff. That stuff starts getting all kinds of messy. So, but let's play this. So Professor Dave made a video, rightfully, I believe, debunking or at least heavily criticizing Professor Dave as a YouTuber. I believe is Professor Dave Explains, and I've seen a couple of his videos, and he takes a very debunker, aggressive, humorous but very aggressive and insulting style to debunking anti-science or conspiracy theory kind of stuff, mostly with anti-science. I believe he primarily cut his teeth with going after flat earthers and stuff like that, and kind of I think he also did some with creationists. Kind of those were the primary ones that he seems to be going after, as flat earthers, creationists, um, any kind of science deniers. Some of the newer ones I think was like Terrence Howard's weird, insane math bullshit, and Eric Weinstein and his pompous ass. I'm not a fan of Eric Weinstein. He throws up a lot of red flags for being somebody who's incredibly dishonest. But go ahead and can we turn on subtitles? I don't know if they have subtitles, but so Professor Dave did a video in response to Matt Walsh, his movie or argument, "What is a Woman?" which Matt Walsh is at best an entertainer. He reminds me kind of like a Rush Limbaugh or any kind of shock jock right leaning entertainer who is for the most part he's just kind of an asshole. He's also a Christian nationalist, pretty unapologetically that way. He's also I believe he's pretty strongly into some degree of like unironically fascism, in kind of a Christian theocracy dictatorship. Seems to be his shtick, even if he doesn't appear like he tries to pass himself off as a modern man-ish, but it's not. Matt Walsh is for the most part a complete and utter fucking tool. His "What is a Woman" is mostly heavily edited and biased in a way that is not particularly um it's just not good faith. And again, even from a comedy standpoint, he's not particularly funny. He's just kind of a douche. And he just plays the common dumb man. I'm just asking questions, and simple common sense is the answer to all questions. It's like, oh, it's not really. Common sense isn't particularly common, nor is it sensical, nor is it really right. Just in basics. So we got Warren Smith is reviewing and basically from my understanding, I haven't watched all this video yet, but it seems like he is directly attacking and going against Professor Dave because Professor Dave attacked Matt Walsh's anti-trans movie, and Matt Walsh's movie is almost explicitly anti-trans. It is extremely biased and critical of transgender positions, and Warren Smith, from what I've seen, is also fairly against that. He tries to take a more middle ground. Oh, I'm not anti-trans. I'm just anti-illogical, unphilosophical comments. Blah blah blah. Some shit like that. It's not. Uh, I don't have high hopes for this one, but again, I didn't say I'm unbiased. I'm just simply here to present a perspective that runs counter to what the stuff that Warren Smith is trying to peddle here. But let's watch real quick.
Professor Dave has 3.8 million followers on YouTube.
Okay, we got 4 seconds in. This is something that I've heard quite a bit. Because I watched a couple of Professor Dave's videos just in anticipation of this to a certain degree, and they've come up over the years, and I've seen one or two here. He's not exactly my style. I'm not super big on that overly aggressive, mean kind of a perspective, even though I myself adopt it sometimes, and I can be rather a mean bastard. I don't think that's necessarily a positive trait, so I try to avoid that as much as possible. But the thing that I've heard from anybody who ever goes up against Professor Dave, anybody who has ever tried to contradict him or seems very upset with Professor Dave, is they always bring up his YouTube subscriber count as if it's supposed to be some kind of a mark against him. Now I know they might say, and Warren Smith will probably bring this up, is that, oh, well, I'm just bringing it up to show the impact of somebody like him, and how, and maybe even bring up the idea that, subtly hint to the idea that his influence, especially if it is bad, negative, or incorrect, could be something we should take seriously. Because, if somebody is a crazy crackpot, but they only have 10 subscribers, 10 followers, nobody cares. Well, it's like, it's not going to cause that much of an issue. But somebody who has 3.6 million, he's going to cause more impact. So we need to pay attention to this. And I can kind of see that argument, but it does always feel a little like there's two angles to this. Is one, you're trying to prejudice the audience against him because he is popular and successful. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but again, you're like, this guy has millions of followers and you don't. And look at how many followers and how much money and success he gets from doing this stuff. And you, the average YouTube video, look at what the crap you have to do. It's like it's trying to play onto that feeling, that sentiment of, look at this successful person and dislike them. The other part is that it also comes off as a little bit kind of weirdly like envious and jealous in a sense. Well, specifically envious, because it's just like this, how dare he have 3 million followers when I don't. I don't know, it's just like, who gives a shit how many he has? Like, you haven't, again, especially leading with that, why don't you just, I feel like the big issue is that Warren Smith, again, with all of his videos, he puts in these quick little cuts, these quick little comments that have absolutely no backing, no context, no setup. You want to bring up that his 3.6 million things are somehow relevant to the conversation, give context to that. Other than just saying he's really, really popular and that's why I'm going after him. Why? Because he's popular? Because he's a big name? Why? What's the point?
Professor Dave has 3.8 million followers on YouTube. Many claim that this is the individual who debunked Matt Walsh in What is a Woman?
People who don't know, you got into this a tiff or an argument, so to speak, online.
I believe this is Professor Dave.
With Matt Walsh.
It went viral. Matt Walsh responded
It contains a formidable argument against my position on gender ideology. One person, in fact, says that Professor Dave debunks my movie. What is?
And I do. It's a funny thing. I feel like the word debunk has also become a much major like point of contention amongst more right-leaning individuals, because it was weird, because for a long time the YouTube algorithm and the YouTube space, when it came to like right-wing commentary, whatever, his debunk was like the favorite term. Like Ben Shapiro debunks college students craziness or blah blah blah, all that. Like it was like, yeah, this is the, going after them and attacking them and debunking them, even if the debunk wasn't particularly a debunk or particularly good critique. It still was called a great, totally destroyed and debunked kind of video titles. But now that I think there's been a growing pushback from liberal left, even kind of centrist academics or just generally more educated, or just general pushback from that side politically and socially in the social media landscape, and more people are making videos, or they are making more videos, and there's some degree of popularity amongst them. Now all of a sudden the word debunking is kind of like anybody who tries to debunk or says that they're debunking, that's an indication that they must be bad, that they're not being honest, or they're coming in biased, and you got to be aware that this is somebody who anybody who spends their day debunking, they're probably not actually a good person, or something like they're trying to disparage the act of debunking, which again just riles me up, because like, I'm sorry, you were literally the ones, like, this was your shtick, and it still kind of is your shtick. So
On gender ideology, one person, in fact, says that Professor Dave debunks my movie, What is a Woman?
Professor Dave responded to that.
It was insane. It was insane, the things he was saying. And I want to expose the script to people like that.
So I'm going to approach this as a blank slate and listen to what he has to say.
Yeah, bullshit. It's always bullshit. Warren, just stop saying this, because you are not approaching this as a blank slate. I can guarantee you, because again, after I did my review of your video, I watched one or two other ones, and I know for a fact that you have a pretty solid and strong opinion on transgenderism and transgender ideologies, or anything like that. So don't say you're approaching this neutrally, unless you're trying to approach it neutrally as that, hey, did his argument defeat Matt Walsh's argument, or address it? Even then, just stop saying that, dude.
And I'm really trying to follow along here.
All I wanted to do.
I do hate the fast cuts. I know this is probably very good for YouTube algorithm and the 10-second attention span, but the fact that he just kind of keeps cutting from one sentence to another sentence, and then he's got that nice little pleading, I'm trying to follow along here, but boy, it's just so hard to follow along. Well, I'm sorry. That for me, whenever somebody starts saying that, my reaction now is, well, just get smarter. You're having a hard time following along, fucking get smarter, because that it's not that complicated.
With my first video was explain that sex and gender are different, and that trans people exist, and that this is a thing with a biological basis.
His argument is that gender identity is grounded in biology, which is interesting. Let's see what he does.
Jesus, yeah. Again, what I'm also coming to conclusion is, why are you even here in the videos? You don't actually sum things up particularly well or anything. It's just like this. Oh, okay, so yes, that's exactly what Professor Dave said. I guess thanks for the summary, but wasn't really much there. That sex is grounded, or that gender identity is grounded in the biological sex, or has some degree of grounding in the biological sex, which is interesting. What do you mean interesting? Anybody who says, oh, that's interesting, without then backing it up, it's a useless comment. Stop saying interesting. Explain what the thing is, what the interest is, and then Move on.
Goes with that.
Thoughts and feelings are ultimately chemical phenomena. We all have a neurochemical profile that guides how we think and feel, and part of that is gender identity.
So gender identity has a neurochemical basis because it's a feeling, and feelings can be traced back to brain activity. Okay, sure. I'll buy that.
Thank you.
Well, that's kind of it, yeah.
Okay, let's roll with that.
I'm not sure why you're rubbing your eyes and doing some performative kind of, oh my god, it's so exhausting trying to follow this guy's logic. Again, you know you're trying to do that with your performative nature here. There's a reason why you picked that cut rather than anything else. With your exasperated tone, there's a reason why you're doing this. And again, like, what the hell was wrong with this?
Okay, sure. I'll buy that.
Thank you.
Okay, let's roll with that.
Okay, let's roll with that. Like, yes, you're going to roll with that. Because, well, even if we just ignore any personal ideology here, you're reviewing whether or not Professor Dave's arguments are valid critiques of Matt Walsh's in this response back and forth. All right. Well, Matt Walsh agreed. Like, even Matt Walsh, again, Matt Walsh is, for the most part, kind of an asshole. Let's just be fair and honest. An asshole. Even Matt Walsh agreed. And again, that it was Professor Dave did a very good job explaining out, kind of the basis of transgenderism as being a biological, neurochemical thing. And it's very easy to imagine that yes, if our internal psychological conception of gender, our feeling of gender, if you will, has some basis in our biological and neurochemical pathways, if those pathways are arranged, set up, developed, or otherwise inhibited or whatever, changed in some manner in utero during the development of the child, during the development of the fetus, whatever, then it would make sense that it is extraordinarily possible that, very likely, or at least it makes sense that a individual, rare though they may be, can have the brain chemistry and or neurochemical pathways in their brain that creates the sensations or the feelings, the perspective, the phenomena of a gender, what we will eventually call a gender, and in this case may create a gender that is not congruent with their sex, i.e. transgenderism. Again, nothing's wrong here.
He makes it clear, though, that we do not fully comprehend it.
And researchers are still working to understand the biological basis of gender.
Again, yeah, we don't fully comprehend it. I don't think that this, and it's weird because again, this is getting maybe a little ahead. I imagine this is where we're going to go. This certainly seems to be where all arguments end up going, is that there always just seems to be this argument of this God within the gaps kind of thing, to where because we don't know it all the way, we should still be skeptical of anything that the science says to us, and thus you can still keep your old-fashioned ideology. You don't need to change your ideological position because, yes, sure, science has already given ample evidence 75% of the way that your way of thinking is wrong, incorrect, and needs to be updated. But because it can't quite get that 25% or that 10% or that 5% or that 1%, you can just kind of keep going with your original thought process.
Identity.
Tomorrow, if I decide...
Still working to...
He makes it clear, though, that we do not fully comprehend it.
And researchers are still working to understand the biological basis of gender identity.
Tomorrow, if I decide I am a woman, is that grounded in biology?
We're not.
Okay. That's pretty dumb. Again, Is that grounded in biology? Maybe. I don't know. This is not a good. This isn't a good response by Warren Smith, because again, he's ignoring the entire concept of the biological basis of gender, and instead is just putting himself forward to. It's kind of frustrating, because again, they will only it's so weird that conservative centrists, or again, not really centrists, but they're just kind of conservative contrarians would be probably a good way to put it. Is they're just contrarians and annoying little uh, rebels, or they pretend that they're rebels. Um, is that all they ever want to talk about is purely conceptual, abstract, social things. They don't actually ever engage. And it's weird because I am absolutely in that field. Like, again, I'm an English teacher. Like, I deal with the fiction and sociology and psychology and culture all the time. That's my bread and butter. And it's just, no, I'm fine with this. But it is very, very frustrating when, instead of engaging with, if a scientist wants to talk about reality, and kind of scientific concepts and biochemistry and chemistry in general, or something like that, I will moderate and modulate my discourse to match theirs. I'm going to talk about realities and existences. I'm going to talk about biology, and I might try to bring some of my sociological cultural analysis into it, but I'm going to try to focus as hard into addressing what they're talking about. What this ends up doing
Are still working to understand the biological basis of gender identity.
Tomorrow, if I decide I am a woman, is that grounded in biology?
We're not.
now, again, he's kind of doing this, but at the same time not. It's more of a almost ridiculing the idea, because the idea isn't being addressed fairly. Is that, one, the question is almost nonsensical, or at least kind of pointless, because it's like, well, perhaps that's the thing. If I decide tomorrow, again, they want to create this hyperbole. Oh, I'm just going to randomly decide, because that's what it is. All transgenderism is purely a social phenomena, a cultural phenomena, and thus we can just disregard it as pointless, useless, blah blah blah, and we can denigrate it as much as we can. Okay, fine, Warren. I'm sure Warren wouldn't agree with that, but quite frankly, uh, I don't care. You're not engaging in good faith. We're a minute in, and you're not engaging in good faith at all. You ask this question in a somewhat mocking tone in the establishment. If I change my gender tomorrow, is that rooted in biology? In question? Like, is that just so seems so ridiculous that that would happen? And the answer is maybe. I don't know. For all we know, yes, you could have, maybe you had a stroke. Maybe all of a sudden some some neurological pathway in your brain that has been dormant or has been functioning in one way, all of a sudden starts functioning in a different way. And there you go. Yeah. Now you are experiencing your chemistry, way in which your feelings and sensations are being processed by your neurochemical computer is now being processed in a different way and producing different results, and that are incongruent with the current status of your, you know, the conception, your frame of reference psychologically of gender, and thus will want and need to change to adjust this. Now, I'm not saying in pro or anti-trans. I'm just saying, like, based on what he said, the answer is either no, you're like, do you have the neurochemical? It's kind of like saying, if I decide tomorrow that I have cancer, does that mean that I have cancer? It's just like, well, I don't know. Do you have fucking cancer? The question is nonsensical.
Decide I am a woman, is that grounded in biology?
We're not furious that trans people exist, but rather we deny the underlying premise of gender ideology.
Right. To deny the identity of trans people, you call it an ideology to pretend that there's an institution to rage against.
The ideas that you're claiming, what is
So, again, Matt Walsh is dishonest here. Again, he says we're not angry at the existence of
We're
this.
not furious that trans people exist, but rather we deny the underlying premise of gender ideology.
Again, that's not even splitting hairs. It's just like this. I don't hate the sinner. I hate the sin and what it does to the people, and I hate all representations of the sin. You mean like the sinner? Yes. So you hate the sinner? No, I just hate the sin, and whatever looks like sin. So the sinner looks like sin. Yes. So do you hate them? No, I don't. Like, but it's like, okay, but you do. And then your actions clearly show your denigration, your insulting, so it's like this is splitting hairs. I don't hate Matt Walsh. I just hate everybody like Matt Walsh. Like you try to make this into a weird, from a philosophical standpoint, it's this weird state where it's just like, oh well, you can't hate any one single person because you haven't met them and don't know them as a person, but you can hate large scale things. It's like, yes, that's kind of true, but it's also functionally kind of stupid when you start thinking about it, because or trying to split that difference, trying to say, well, no, I don't hate them. It's like this, yes, you do. What they are, their ideology, their presentation, all of that is part of who they are, and you hate it. Hate them. Again, this is another one of those things where I don't hate all 100% of them. I just hate 99.9% of them. Of the individual. Like if we were to look at it, like, what do you dislike about the singular one of individual? Well, I dislike basically everything. Well, so that means you hate them? No, I just dislike the things that I dislike. Again, we're circling around in stupidity. Again, Professor Dave is cutting through in his own way, cutting through that kind of bullshit. It's like this, no, you do hate them. And again, you are using, and again, Professor Dave is, I'm not quite so antagonistic towards the word ideology, because I kind of my field, so I don't mind it. So I'm not sure if I agree 100% with Professor Dave here saying this, but it is true that, again, you are framing transgenderism as an ideological position because you only want to treat it as a social phenomenon and want to ignore any of the biological and scientific proofs and or evidence that suggests it's not simply a social phenomenon, or even if it is, it's obviously a social phenomenon grounded in some kind of biological reality. They only want to treat it as an idea, not an idea grounded in a response to real world existences or real world facts or sciences or whatever. It's just purely somebody decided yesterday they're going to be a different gender. That's it. Just a complete psychological phenomena. Purely that, nothing more. And that is dishonest.
Right. To deny the identity of trans people, you call it an ideology to pretend that there's an institution to rage against.
And that's kind of what Professor Dave is responding to, is this insistence on taking something that has some degree of scientific backing and scientific relevance and then turning it into a purely social phenomena, a individual psychological phenomena that can be dismissed. Oop, knocked my microphone over. So again, and I don't know what Warren Smith is going to say, but it's probably not going to be particularly insightful.
the ideas that you're claiming? What is a woman? It's just a word. Words can mean anything we want, and we can change those meanings. Well, that is an ideology. It's the ideas motivating the change of those words.
But hold on, I got to rewatch that.
an ideology to pretend that there's an institution to rage against.
The ideas that you're claiming, what is a woman? It's just a word. Words can mean anything we want, and we can change those meanings. Well, that is, and it's just a word. Words.
There's an institution to rage against.
The ideas that you're claiming, what is a woman? It's just a word.
The ideas that you're claiming, again, this fast cutting is not helping because it just seems to be chopping up this entire idea. The ideas that you're claiming that,
words can mean anything we
that woman is just a word and words can mean anything.
want, and we can change those meanings. Well, that is an ideology.
That is an idea. I mean, in the most pedantic of senses, yes, but at the same time, again, this is just useless commentary. You're not actually providing any utility here because at most you're basically saying, haha, you said these words, and because you said them and they came from a human mind, they must be an idea, and thus it is an ideology. Ha ha ha. I win. Well, okay. I guess it's kind of a useless comment to make. Because yes, congratulations. A human communication. And he communicated an idea based upon the ideas and concepts in his brain, and I guess that makes it an ideology. But again, I know this is not a fair response. Like, again, you could explain out like, well, I mean, technically Professor Dave might be slightly incorrect here because, again, the idea that gender, and again, it's ignoring that from Professor Dave's perspective, and indeed his ideological perspective, is that his ideological perspective is informed by a scientific reality, if we will, an observable scientific biochemistry and neurochemical reality according to the sciences and according to people's research on this. So it's not just his idea. Again, this is like saying, well, you're saying a rock is hard and that's just an ideological position, because you're some people could perceive this as soft or some people could perceive blah blah blah. It's like, well, no, but his ideological position is backed up based upon a scientific kind of consensus on the density and hardness of the rock. This is not useful.
Words can mean anything we want, and we can change those meanings. Well, that is an ideology. It's the ideas motivating the change of those words.
Again, the ideas motivating those changes, and again, they want to, again, what Warren Smith is doing is very frustrating, is that he's, again, pretending like those ideas are simply ideas being formed from complete and utter nothing. Not, at least in Professor Dave's example here, or in Professor Dave's critique, is not necessarily true. It's not just, I decided and a bunch of other people decided we want to perceive this word as different or blah, blah, blah. It's more an observed phenomena that has been observed multiple times, and then from a scientific standpoint, tested and examined for what is creating this phenomena. Is this something that's purely psychological, or is there some kind of neurological, biological thing that is causing this to occur? Because we keep seeing this, because it's obviously a real thing that is occurring in the sense that the person is doing a thing, whether or not that thing, in this case transgenderism, is simply a psychological disorder perhaps, or whatever it is. Again, I don't think that, but let's just take it in neutral tones. It could be anything, could be caused by anything, could be them literally faking it, like they go home, take off all of it, and they just sit down on the couch and go, haha, I fooled everyone today. It's awesome, and I'm getting my jollies, my thrills out of fooling everybody. That could have been, and we examined and analyzed it, and that doesn't seem to be the case, or at least as far as we can tell and prove, it doesn't seem to be the case. And then we go, well, okay, ignoring the transgenderism and analyzing that, well, let's just look at, is there such a thing as how do people's conception of sex and gender, or how does gender come about from sex? How do we know what sex we are? How do we know to do these things or to perform these actions, or to what is the basis for this? Is there some kind of, again, who knows, evolutionary biology to this? Is there some kind of neurological thing? Is there some kind of biochemistry going on? What is it? They've looked into it, and from Professor Dave's focus, that's what he's talking about. It's not just deciding words mean different things in response to ideas. It's not ideas. It is ideas that are in response to phenomena, objective phenomena, social phenomena, but also biological phenomena. Even the phenomena of just looking at biology and going, oh, there's two sexes. But at the same time, well, no, the way these phenotypes, the way these gametes and the way all this stuff kind of mixes together isn't perfectly black and white. Well, if it's not perfectly black and white, that's an interesting concept. Okay, is there some degree, we have these concepts of intersex, and okay, well, let's work with that. Let's move on. And these phenomena are real, objective, observable things, and they are applying and being applicable or applicable to, again, other social phenomena and gender phenomena that we are now analyzing and going, hey, maybe this has some basis for this. And again, the research in this, again, is not necessarily 100% new. It's not like this is a brand new idea that just came up in the last few years. It has, again, achieved a lot more focus in the last few years, partly due to right-wing transphobic responses and bullshit like that. But also, yes, you know what? I will freely admit that there is a good chance that there might be a solid social phenomena, what is the there's a term for it, but basically like a socially created phenomena, in that, you know, all the girls going to class are all now wearing their hair in braids because one or two did, and now everyone's wearing in braids. You know, some trend. It could be there could be a rise in, again, the rise in prominence and the number of transgender individuals coming out. Some of them could be doing it from a purely social and or psychological basis that isn't really neurochemically inspired. They don't have gender dysphoria or anything like that. They're simply doing this because it is an expression of a social cultural identity that they align with. I'm not saying that's good or bad, but again, that may be more aligned with Warren Smith's critique of it, and maybe even Matt Walsh, the asshole's critique of it. But that is not what Professor Dave is dealing with.
Humans look at the world and ourselves and make up sounds in an attempt to compartmentalize our experiences and communicate them.
Words are tools, the boat's floating on the surface, and the fabric of reality beneath is what's interesting. Got it.
Woman is a word.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad you agree with that, Warren. At least we can agree with that. I suppose, again, the weird boat on the surface, like, I don't know what kind of metaphor you were going for with that one, but okay.
It means whatever we say it does, just like every other word in every language ever. The word woman has come to mean any adult of female gender identity.
Who decided that, though?
We all did. Woman means any adult with a female gender identity. Cis woman, female, trans woman, male, female. And again, who decided this? Well, what do you mean? We all did. Now, again, this is what he's having an issue with. Who decided that we would include these people in with this framework? Well, I'm sorry. The scientific and academic consensus helped formulate to a certain degree. And honestly, there isn't enough. Again, like, I don't understand the use of this word throughout all of its history, even pre our the common understanding and the common acknowledgement, or again, the word escapes me. Even before the concept of transgenderism became more mainstream and acknowledged within the mainstream, we still used the words woman and man in a non objective reality sense. We tell people to man up. What the fuck does that mean? Man up. I'm supposed to change my biological sex if I, again, or you're acting like a woman as an insult to a man. Well, I'm sorry, I'm getting my period. I'm having a biological thing. I'm reproducing children. What do you mean? Oh, no, they're talking about the social and cultural phenomena and the expression of that identity. Okay, well, we can automatically see that that's not, well, you're acting like a female. You're acting very female gametes or whatever, large gametes, small gametes. You're acting very pregnant. What? No. Again, we're not referring to the biological. We're referring to the sociological, cultural trends that we see within the encapsulated by that word. Male, again, woman, female, they're often used somewhat interchangeably, but just because the laziness of the common man leads to two words being used literally, figuratively, you remember those? You remember how those are two completely opposite and different fucking words? But now people say literally when they mean figuratively because they want to use the emphasis and the power of reality that is suggested with the saying that this is literally going to kill me. Literally being the idea that this is objective reality. This is going to kill me. But they're using that in, again, a facetious manner. They're using that in a hyperbole manner. Okay. That's we can literally, I mean literally as literally see this trend happening. Though see isn't literally because we're not actually seeing it, do we? We don't really see words being spoken. So that's literally figuratively or whatever. Notice again how language is messy here. Congratulations. Welcome, Warren Smith, to language. Again, this umbrage, who decided this? What decided based on, and again, the cut's terrible because for the most part, everything that he was saying, woman is a word we made up, so it means whatever we say it does.
Means whatever we say it does, just like every other word in every language ever. The word woman has come to mean any adult of female gender identity.
Who has come to mean, and again, through use, who decided this?
Who decided that?
What is this conspiratorial hour? Who decided this? I don't know. Who decided that any word means anything ever? Like, again, Warren Smith, you don't seem to understand. Like there is no person in charge, and there is no cabal in charge necessarily. This is just sociological phenomena. This is socio-cultural phenomena of words changing, of things falling in and out of fashion. I mean, slang is a great example of that. Again, some words mean something and we use slang to refer to those concepts and things, and those slang fall in and out of favor and can change depending on the social and cultural change that goes with it.
Woman refers to whoever we say it refers to, and we decided that it refers to adult individuals of female gender identity, which includes trans women in addition to cis women.
I mean, a trans woman is somebody who identifies as a woman.
Yes, their gender is female. Their sex is male and their gender is female.
But they are not literally women.
Well, woman is a word we made up. What do you mean? Do you mean sex? Do you mean gender? Do you want to, should we make up a new word for trans women? It's just language. It's just words we made up. You know what I mean?
Why aren't these words good enough to say, okay, you're
so again, there's nothing really wrong with what Professor Dave was saying. Again, maybe there's some degree of obtuseness or whatever, like, what does woman mean?
Literally women.
Well,
literally women. Well, again, the question is kind of like, again, you're not literally this vague concept. Well, it's a vague concept, so by its very nature, or it's a non-specific concept. It is not that specific. I'm afraid it just isn't. So it's not a specific concept. So it is entirely possible that, yeah, you could be that. Again, they want to just make this, and again, it's mostly just disagreeing with anything that is at all abstract and not, set in stone. I don't want to change my perspective. I don't want to change anything because I'm scared to death of this new word. I have very little respect for this. This perspective that is just so terrified. It's like this. Okay, what is a woman? Well, woman is, for the most part, and again, I'm sorry, the science is also, there's enough scientific evidence to suggest that the word woman should not, or at the very least, the word woman, our concept of woman, is not so firmly grounded in an objective reality that it has wiggle room. This is not completely outside the bounds of, logic.
Woman is a word we made up. What do you mean? Do you mean sex? Do you mean gender? Do you want to, should we make up a new word for trans women? It's just language. It's just words we made up. You know what I mean?
Why aren't these words good enough? You say, okay, you're a trans woman. The problem is that you're taking it a step further. This is the definition of an ideology, a movement to introduce this new use of language based on a set of ideas. Definition of an ideology, a movement to introduce this new use of language based on a set of ideas.
Okay, this perhaps, but you say that like it's a bad thing. Like, we do this all the time. Like, every single time there's a scientific or social or cultural phenomena that is observed, and that after careful analysis we decide, the cabal of controllers decides, well, this isn't really particularly accurate. We're going to update our, I'm sorry, the DSM the diagnosis for like psychologists, psychiatrists, or whatever, changes frequently as the psychological phenomena either themselves change or our understanding of them changes because we study it more and more and more. Like, apparently we should just stick with whatever Freud came up with when it comes to psychological phenomena and his pronouncements and words and phrases that he would use to describe them, because, well, I mean, he came up with them and they're the original, and anything that was the origin must be the best. Origin. It's like, well, no, like, things have advanced, things changed, or even if it's not necessarily for the better, I'm sorry, sticking with the old school, well, I just want to do it this way. Okay, but people don't have to agree with you. In fact, the rest of the world doesn't have to agree with you. And in fact, the professional world, if it needs a standard and the standard has changed, they're not just going to keep servicing your old operational system. Sorry. You want to keep it on your own in a personal language kind of thing and whatever, fine. But they don't have to. This isn't bad, and it's not also good. But again, this kind of weird, it is an ideology. Again, I don't trust you to be saying that in a fair and balanced manner. The way you're saying this, you're saying ideology like it's bad. It's like this. Well, no, ideology is neither good nor bad. Ideology is simply a thing. It's not where they're trying to, mind wipe you. They're trying to control your brain. Oh my God, ideology. It's just, that's not useful.
There is no ideology here. It is specifically biology, and it is biology that transphobes regularly ignore. Anything else?
The question is whether those feelings reflect reality.
That's the dumbest goddamn thing I just heard. Fuck me. Okay, regardless of whether we agree or disagree with what Professor Dave's saying, Professor Dave, or irregardless of how 100% correct or incorrect, Matt Walsh's comment is dumb. Professor Dave's argument is that these feelings are being inspired by the biological reality. Just kind of like, look, if I were to inject you with a ton of hallucinogenic chemicals, and you start tripping balls, and your senses start sensing all these kind of things, and you start seeing pink elephants and hearing, Yellow Submarine playing on loop or some shit, whatever. Imagine something stupid. The phenomena now, is there a pink elephant in front of you? No, but you are feeling these feelings or sensations because of a objective reality. Now, the objective reality is what he's talking about. He's saying these feelings being expressed here right now, or the things that are being expressed, are based in an objective reality of this is what's happening in their brains. Their neural pathways, all that stuff is inspiring. This is how our feelings come into being. This is how, in many ways, our thoughts have some degree of being, if you will. That's it. That's the reality.
Specifically biology, and it is biology that transphobes regularly ignore.
It is biology that is inspiring these feelings inside of them. Now, how those feelings are expressed in a sociological or personal manner, how they dress, how they speak, or whatever, that is social phenomena. That is malleable in social phenomena. So if for whatever reason we had developed where women wear pants and men wear skirts, and that's just the way in which we developed based on some sociological, cultural phenomena, blah, 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 blah. The transgender individual will feel feelings that are matching onto the brain chemistry of female. Their brain chemistry is more female than male, or their neurotransmitters are working in such a way that it is creating the neural pathway and the neural framework of female. But how do I express that? They won't feel happy, again, because their mind is trying to match on. So they have this feeling of woman, or whatever it is. It's not a word. It's just a feeling. It's a biological thing. And then how their biology is expressed in a external social cultural setting is what's causing that. So if they felt female and they were dressed and treated and engaged with as a female from a purely social phenomena, let's just say for whatever reason they happen to be born in a setting to where they are born male, biologically male, but they are born in a setting where they have decided to treat that male as a female, a woman, a sociological, cultural woman. And let's just say that during development, that child had basically transgenderism, body dysmorphia, whatever, to some degree, to where they perceived their gender identity as being incongruent with their body. But because of the way they are treated, and they are told, we are treating you like a woman because you are a woman. And then they go, okay, well, what is a woman? Woman is blah, 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 blah. And they see women, biological women, and they see that they are different from those biological women, but they are treated as that woman, and they are treated that way. And they have the brain chemistry. The question then would be, are they going to have any kind of psychological discomfort? The way this is framed and the suggestion of it is perhaps potentially not, because their sociological, their gender identity, and the identity which they were identified by society as their gender identity, was not incongruent with their biological, their neurochemical responses. Great. Deal with the biology. And again, you want to talk about the sociological problems. There might be sociological and philosophical issues with the concepts of transgenderism. I'm perfectly willing to discuss those. The issue I'm having is that Professor Dave is not discussing those. You keep, again, his response here is that transphobes, and transgender critical individuals only ever want to talk about the sociological, and they don't ever want to deal with any of the science that may back this up.
Here. It is specifically biology, and it is biology that transphobes regularly ignore. Anything else?
The question is whether those feelings reflect reality.
Again, that is answered. Like, again, he wants to treat reality as like this God-created reality. Again, his conception of reality is actually not very real. It's incredibly weirdly ideologically inspired. But yes, that's literally like this is again a dumb response, because again he wants to say feelings, that as in feelings are a purely psychological phenomena that have no basis in biology, and Professor Dave was literally just saying how we can see feelings, and in this case the feeling of gender identity, the conception of gender and how we can conceive of it, has a biological neurological basis that is based somewhat in sometimes in harmony with our sex, and sometimes not. Sometimes it is incongruous with our sex. So yes, it does have a reality. Like, are you listening?
So suddenly reality is not just what you say it is, because he makes statements such as this.
Just
What? This is also an editing choice. You're making a comment, a future comment of like this. However, he's about to say something where reality isn't blah blah blah, and then that doesn't flow from the last little bit. Like the last little bit talked about, does this match up to reality? You're not this form of commentary I'm not particularly fond of. It's a weird thing where you like are either you're trying to poison the well, or you're trying to pre-argue before that you give evidence. I don't
Reality
know.
is not just what you say it is, because he makes statements such as this.
Just saying you're not a bigot doesn't change the fact that you're a bigot. Sorry. In the case of someone who is anorexic, there is a disconnect with something that is objectively measurable and quantifiable in the external world.
You have made the argument that there is an objective neurochemical reality within the brain.
If they feel like they weigh 300 pounds and they objectively weigh 100 pounds, that's not the same thing as gender identity, which occurs exclusively in the brain.
Then how can it be biology? Is biology not objectively real?
What the fuck is he talking about? What are you talking about, Warren? This is... I'm not even sure if I agree 100% with how Professor Dave is discussing and bringing this up. But here's Professor Dave's kind of argument, the difference between anorexia and transgenderism, if we will, or gender dysphoria, if you will. All right, so anorexia is let's say a neurochemical thing, to where they feel like they should be a their brain, they are 100 pounds, but their brain, neurotypically or whatever it is causing them to perceive themselves as being 300 pounds or too fat. Even if they are not too fat, they're perceiving themselves as too fat constantly, so they will starve themselves to death. The big thing is we'll talk about that in a second, but okay. So, and the big thing is that he's saying that there is no weight identity. I think is the big kind of difference here, is that we've never conceived of weight as being a sociological phenomena, as a socio-cultural phenomena. Weight is not that. Weight is simply weight. How we perceive a weight, like fat might be that, but weight or the mass is not a sociological phenomenon. We might describe how somebody who is unhealthy or fat or not fat, that is more in the social cultural kind of mindset. The issue is that the anorexic again, we shorthand it to fat, but the anorexic mind, it's not necessarily that they think themselves as fat, is that they think that they have have too much mass, is that the biology is constantly telling them you're too big. And again, fat and ugly, all those things are the sociological kind of mirrors that the individual who is anorexic will look for and see, oh, I can recognize the sensation that I have in myself in this thing right here to a certain degree. So they'll use those words. But the issue is that, and it's also should be noted that, again, anorexia doesn't stop. It doesn't really stop. From my understanding, there's no like endpoint where the anorexic will become skin and bones and go, oh, I feel okay. Now I feel better. I'm just going to maintain this and I'm going to eat this. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be happy here. And it doesn't stop at a healthy point, even if it does stop. The anorexic will go until they are literally dying. The body is literally dying and eating itself and dying. And even then, they will still have feelings of, I'm too fat. Even when, like, just say, okay, they only eat 200 calories a day and they're skin and bones, after they eat that 200 calories, they will still often feel uncomfortable with that. There's a degree of uncomfort, especially if they focus on it to any degree. There's kind of a difference is that, one, from the functional standpoint, is that transgenderism does not necessarily equate to the death of the individual, will not lead to death. Gender dysphoria, or not treating it to some degree, but again, the treatment, even if we were to be fairly anti-trans to a degree and just say, oh, the treatment's just to keep them from killing themselves, we don't actually believe they're blah, 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 we're just faking it to keep them from dying. Okay. It's not that far. It's not that big of a problem to do that. Like, the fix is pretty easy, and the fix itself is not deadly. Not going to kill them. So and beyond that, again, to address this thing, is that the concept of gender identity, gender doesn't really have, and this might be my argument to explain Dave's, and maybe Dave would disagree, but gender is in many ways, gender is a purely psychological, sociological phenomena that expresses itself from a biological reality, to a certain degree. So no matter what, like, oh, well, gender, it's not responding to reality. There is no reality of gender. There is no, it's kind of like saying justice. There is no physical manifestation or objective manifestation of justice. Now, that doesn't mean that justice or the concept isn't somehow very, very important to our sociological and cultural, engagement and psychology and all that. But it does mean that, again, there is no physical necessarily. Now, to just gender itself. Now, biology, the neurochemical nature of it, informs us to a certain degree, so that the gender sitting up here in the purely psychological phenomena is being informed by the biology down here. If we were to say, or biological, again, not necessarily down here, but biological, order of hierarchy. Biology is that this concept is rooted or informed greatly by biology. The biological neurochemical pathways of the brain will influence this to a certain degree. And then external world influences as well, and it creates a little triangle of influence. The big thing is that, again, this isn't that different. Again, they don't necessarily think 300 pounds. They just constantly think my weight is wrong. And there is no fix to this. This is a big thing. So even if we were to take a stab against Professor Dave and say that he's incorrect by making this objective thing. If we just take it in the purely subjective thing, no matter what, the anorexic always think that their weight is wrong. Almost always. Whereas the transgender individual thinks that their gender is wrong until their gender matches up to the sociological gender that is, or the sociocultural perception of gender. So basically, if you tell this person, hey, you weigh, you look great, or let's just say this, hypothetically, this person's conception is that they're 300 pounds and need to lose weight. If the society says you are 300 pounds, you need to lose weight, and then they lose weight until there is no point when they're comfortable, where they're happy. Because no matter what, there is always an action. This impulse drives them to do an action that is self-harm. Harmful. To starve themselves until they die. Transgender individual, I think I'm a woman. They are a man, a male, a biological male. If society says you are a woman, they're fine. The end point, the loop is closed. They won't need to do anything more. And if for gender dysphoria, again, that is okay. Obviously, there is or body dysphoria, gender dysphoria. There is clearly a psychological condition that they won't until their body, their biological reality looks or at least matches up to the framework here, they won't do it. But again, that is an endpoint. Let's just say she actually objectively weighs, let's just change this. She objectively weighs 100 pounds. And she thinks, I weigh 300 pounds. This is actually kind of weird. It'd be more like their brain chemistry says that I should weigh 0 pounds. And they're shocked that they weigh 100 pounds and that it is incongruent with their belief structure or with their ideology. Not ideology, but their conception of themselves. Again, it's never a healthy thing, but let's just say they have, I should be 95 pounds. They're 100 pounds and they're shocked and horrified. Again, if they reach 95 pounds, the transgender thing is that if they reach 95 pounds, they're fine. If the objective reality matches in with the internal reality, the transgender individual is fine, or at least the perception of the objective reality is fine. Again, this is not really understanding. And I'm not sure if this is the greatest kind of example Professor Dave could do, but again, Warren Smith is just not. They're never going to get this.
That's not the same thing as gender identity, which occurs exclusively in the brain.
Then how can it be biology? Is biology?
Because the brain is biological. He's not just talking about the brain as in consciousness, the phenomena of consciousness. He's talking about the biological reality of the brain that does things that inspires consciousness or frames in consciousness.
Not objectively real.
That we aren't yet at the place where we can do a scan of someone's brain and conclusively identify the structures that make them trans doesn't mean that transness somehow isn't real or just as rooted in physical reality as those other things.
So now it is rooted in physical reality.
He's never not gone off from that position. You just decided to interpret his words as exclusively in the brain, as in exclusively in consciousness. And only think about consciousness from the phenomenological perspective of consciousness as just being a purely philosophical concept rather than a thing, an emergent phenomena from a biological reality.
I could have sworn I heard you earlier.
Can I identify?
No, you didn't. And again, this performative exasperation is a bit tired.
Rooted in physical reality. I could have sworn I heard you earlier.
Can I identify as Chinese if I'm white? No, your genome and birthplace exist in external reality.
So, this is where I might disagree a little bit, is that if you're meaning Chinese, again, this is actually, it still goes into kind of his argument and somewhat supportive of Professor Dave. I just feel like this example is actually wrong. So I would critique this a little bit, is that you could be Chinese if you were biologically European, if you were born in China. You could also be Chinese and perhaps seen as Chinese if you see Chinese, or when you mean Chinese, as purely a cultural ethnicity phenomena, not necessarily a biological phenomena or a DNA phenomena or anything like that, just purely the social. If, let's just say, you were born in Leeds, England, something like that, you're white as snow, but as a baby you were adopted by Chinese parents and you lived in Shanghai, or you lived in somewhere in China for 30 some years, purely as a Chinese person. Honestly, you're Chinese. You speak Chinese, you're culturally Chinese, you're ideologically Chinese, you're Chinese. We might say, and I'm not going to split the hair too much. If he says if that person comes over to America, learns English, and comes to America and says, I am Chinese, then we might go, again, I'm not going to be some kind of weird biological essentialist and say, no, you can't possibly be Chinese. It'd be like saying, like, oh, you can't possibly be American. Like, because what, you were born in another country, came over and got your citizenship, you're not a true American. Again, Chinese, if we're thinking in nationality or simply a socio-political cultural phenomena, you can be that. Now, if again we're talking about, if I say this is the difficulty of language, which is Warren Smith is not helping solve this, is that this can be a vague statement. What do you mean by Chinese? If you mean biologically, what we identify when we have used the word to say Chinese to refer to the specific uh, uh, DNA marker system, this specific DNA thing, then no, that person is not of Chinese biological ethnicity descent. If you mean culturally and socially, yeah, sure.
I see a logical contradiction here, though.
Because I'm not.
Not really. It's not so much a contradiction as it is a flaw of language that Dave sadly is walking into. I will critique Dave on this one. Again, you're being it's not necessarily fast and loose, but this is the issue of language, is that, again, because we shorthand use language when we say a Chinese person, we can absolutely mean somebody who is culturally Chinese, but also biologically of the DNA strand that we have decided is Chinese. Though I don't even think we do that. I think it would be something way more specific, as far as like lineages and certain uh, whatnot. But it again, this is a mistake on Dave's part. But again, Warren Smith is not helping the issue.
Peddling ideology, I'm just acknowledging that trans people exist and using biology to explain it. There is such a thing as having the experience of being male or female, and this correlates with brain structure. Masculinization and feminization occur in the brain.
Interesting. He uses the word feminization and masculinization. So we're not born with a female brain or a male brain. It occurs throughout time. So does that mean it's a societal construct?
That's No, again, he's trying to present this like it's somehow a strange idea, masculinization and feminization, in the sense that, oh, masculinization, feminization, like, is this something that you become more masculinized, your brain structure becomes more masculinized as you go through society and grow up from 10 years old to 30 to 45? Not necessarily. From my understanding of the phrase, and usually when they're said in biological structure of masculinization or feminization, when they're mentioning biology, they're talking about stuff that's like in utero. They're talking about stuff that's like when you go from basically a zygote, fucking a fertilized egg is a little zygote, a little thingamajigger, a little tiny thing, into an 8 month, 9 month old fetus. They're talking about that as you're literally again changing from basically like a multi-cell little mass, unrecognizable, unidentifiable as anything human, to all of a sudden you're turning into a vaguely lizard-like person with a vestigial tail and weird shaped. You look like a fucking dolphin. Um, yeah, you look weird when you're at that development stage. Like you're a couple weeks. I can't remember what it is. It's like a month or whatever. You're some weird little freak of nature. You look like an alien, and then all of a sudden, a couple months later, your tail's gone, and you start looking a bit more vaguely baby shaped. And then by 8, 9 months, you're very baby shaped. Yeah, hey, baby. They're talking about that. Typically, when they're talking about feminization and masculinization, they're talking about you're not in sociological cultural setting here. Again, and I kind of doubt that Professor Dave is talking about that. He seems mostly, perhaps sometimes even to his detriment, focused purely on the biological aspect. But that's fine. He can focus on that. He's talking about that, the biological feminization or masculinization of a a baby, of a fetus.
If you are feminized, feminization occurs through your experience.
Please stop saying things like gender is a social construct. No, it is not. It is a biological construct.
I might disagree pretty heavily with this to a certain degree. Again, he's purely taking, and again, we can certainly say that it has some degree of biological construction in there and basis, but there's a great deal of sociological and cultural kind of influence on that, and at least in how we express it and or embody it, for lack of a better word, in the social and cultural environment. But is there an objective reality of gender in a sense, this phenomena? Yeah, for the most part. Again, I'm gonna slightly deviate with him here. But for the most part, the big thing is, yeah, like that this is not necessarily not. Society doesn't turn people trans again, and it doesn't turn people gay. No, not really.
Okay. So then my decision to be a woman is not a social construct. It's driven by my neurochemistry.
The male and female brain are different, right? As much as a lot of people would not want to believe that. It is true. The male and female brain are different.
That's really interesting.
See, this is a major problem for you, Dave, and let me try to explain why. It's a problem because, and listen closely, you are using the word. Do you see why that's an issue? You say the word woman is complicated and apparently ambiguous and hard to understand, yet you use it.
The male and female brain are.
I'm just gonna ignore the stupidity of that. Yes, again, language is messy and people's thoughts are messy and people will shorthand stuff and people will use things. So, oh, well, if the word is so complicated, we'll just stop using it and use something else. How dare you? This is a stupid gotcha.
Are different. It is in no way a disavowal of biology. On the contrary, people who object to this terminology typically do so on the basis of ignorance towards biology. I have yet to hear anyone reject these terms while accepting what we just described regarding sex and gender identity.
Really? Because I'm more than happy to do that.
Yeah, well, you're not really a fair thing here. Because again, you're not actually going to argue about the biology because you can't and we won't. You'll simply focus on the sociological function of it and pretend like the biological essentialism, if we were to critique Dave a little bit, that his position, the biological, has no bearing, and like again, you're just going to ignore this and purely make it into a, well, they just chose it because of their psychological makeup, and Professor Dave's going to go, their psychological makeup is a reflection of their biological and neurochemical makeup. So this idea that you're somehow saying that it's invalid for them to say this is stupid because they technically are a biological, neurological thing. They are the thing that they say they are, even if other aspects of their biology do not fit. And they're up until then, maybe they, unless they transitioned in womb, they socially were put in one category, but did not match up with their neurochemistry.
That's what I'm trying to do right now.
You're doing it.
Gender identity.
You're doing it terribly, Warren. Absolutely awfully, and you're not.
Really? Because I'm more than happy to do that. That's what I'm trying to do right now.
There is nobody I have ever encountered who says, yes, sex is this suite of genetic and anatomical characteristics, while gender identity is this largely neuroanatomical construct, and a trans person represents an instance in which they do not align.
Sex refers to male and female, and let's go with your gender identity is whatever you choose. Fine.
Again, choice is not fucking fuck. Choice is not the operative here. Because they did not choose to have the neuroanatomical and neurochemistry of this. They didn't choose any of that. This is like saying somebody who's born with what is it, type 1 diabetes. Well, let's just let's say that you chose to have diabetes. They didn't choose shit, Warren. God fucking damn it. Sorry, I'm muttering to myself now. Again, this absolute refusal. And you know what? I would be perfectly fine discussing, arguing, and talking about the social, cultural, psychological phenomena of all manner of stuff and purely ignoring, because I do all the time, purely ignoring scientific and biological realities. I talk about fiction all the time. Elves and dwarves and shit. And I talk about them in serious and joking manners. I analyze fiction all the time. I am perfectly used to doing this. But it is absolutely galling that somebody who wants to claim to be somewhat of an academic and an intellectual and blah, 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 simply refuses to play another game. I play soccer. Let's just say me and Warren, we play soccer all the time. We're always dealing with soccer. Professor Dave is playing basketball. I'm perfectly willing and capable of playing basketball to a certain degree and even discussing certain ideas and how certain things that are done in soccer, certain moves, certain concepts about passing balls, I may be able to adopt or change or bring these up and say, hey, how does this work? So in soccer, we do blah, blah, blah. And this is how we pass, and this is how we create formations and, passing from one person to the other person to create openings, da, da, da. How does that function here? Is this applicable to your field? And he might go, yeah, to a certain degree, or like, well, actually, it doesn't quite work so well in here. Those kind of formations, those kind of pass formations and procedures don't really work as well here because of X, Y. I can do that easily. Warren Smith seems utterly incapable of engaging this at all, and he keeps bringing it back to this philosophical phenomenological choice thing. They're choosing this. That's not what Professor Dave is arguing about. Maybe some transgender activists or whatever talk about it purely from a sociological, phenomenological kind of perspective, and you're arguing with them. But you're not arguing with them right now. You're talking and arguing with Professor Dave. Deal with Professor Dave. Don't deal with somebody else. Deal with Professor Dave. Professor Dave is looking at gender and transgenderism as being emergent from a anatomical construct. That gender is in many ways biological. It's neuroanatomical a construct. It's how it comes about. And then our expression of it, okay, sociological, whatever, that changes. But again, he's talking about their sex, biological characteristics. One of those biological characteristics we could say is neuroanatomical. Gender identity comes specifically from the neuroanatomical construct in the brain and the neuroreceptors. These things can be incongruent. You can absolutely have a structure here that does not necessarily match the structure that ended up happening here, or a structure here that doesn't happen here or here.
This person represents an instance in which they do not align.
Sex refers to male and female. And let's go with your gender identity is whatever you choose.
Again, not.
Fine.
But someone of male sex and female gender identity should be called a trans man. I have never heard.
Yes, but I think that an individual of male sex and a female gender identity should be called a trans man. Yeah, that would be somebody if they were actually concerned with the biology of this. They would be thinking about, because the trans part of this is many ways referring to the gender identity and congruity of this and that. So it's not like it's not like, again, Matt Walsh is saying that the transgender woman, the male to female transgender woman, he's not saying we should call them a trans man, because they are biologically a man, but neurologically they're a female, hence the trans, the incongruence, the transition, the non-setup there. Hey Larson, how's it going? We're doing a bit of analysis. Then we're going to do some gaming, because this is very frustrating. But I decided to use some of my brain and intellect for good and discuss, sadly, a video here by Warren Smith, who's not a particularly good faith analysis, but, you know, kind of jumping in the middle here, but that's all right.
That once.
I'm just going to accept this as true, just to see where this takes us logically. Okay, let's do that.
The unfortunate linguistic
95% sure you'll graduate? Good. The 5% is a little bit concerning. No. But, you know, 95%, that's good. Good. As long as you're competent on that, you can enjoy your summer and have a good time. Maybe start looking into colleges and universities. Hey, that's fun.
coincidence.
Takes us logically. Okay, let's do that.
The unfortunate linguistic coincidence is that we use terms like man and woman or male and female in describing both of these phenomena.
Sometimes teachers have hidden assignments. Yeah, we could sometimes do that. Pop quizzes. Always good. But yeah, okay, so what Professor Dave is bringing up here is, yeah, part of the issues that's coming up is that there's a mismatch or a common vernacular linguistic laziness that happens to where we use terms that, or because we didn't have the conception or the knowledge to be able to separate out these terms, or to think that these terms should be separate. But now that we do.
The unfortunate linguistic coincidence is that we use terms like man and woman or male and female in describing both of these phenomena.
But it's not a coincidence, it's a choice.
God damn it, Warren, you piss me off so much. I swear to God, it's like he doesn't, it's just so bad faith, because he doesn't actually want to respond to the thing he wants to respond to.
In describing both of these phenomena.
But it's not a coincidence, it's a choice by those who want it to be so.
It's a choice. One, I would have to put Warren, fuck who, so what? So what? It's a choice, Warren. So what? We chose to stop using cowabunga as a slang term for fun or radical, and we don't use even it's totally radical, dude. Like, okay, so we with more information or the change in language, we have there has been a general consensus, or a good consensus among some, that these two things, that there is a there's a disconnect that these two things are not perfectly synonymous in the scientific world. That in the scientific world, one and the other are slightly different. So we're adopting one of these words that we've had for a while as, okay, well, this is what we know, the biological, this is the neurological, blah, blah, blah. Like, again, it's just this weird conspiratorial, somebody chose this and is now forcing it
That
upon
is where
you.
the confusion arises, when people insist that one term must encapsulate both phenomena at once.
Cool, let's not do that then. The biological reality of your sex is different from the social construct of your gender identity. Fine.
Again, I wouldn't mind arguing this with Warren Smith, but again, Warren Smith is responding to Dave's video, and Dave's video is not talking about sociological things. He's talking about neurological realities. Automatically, you are not dealing with the categories and that are being presented. It's just bad analysis. This is pseudo-intellectual analysis. God, it's starting to irritate me. I see YouTube is filled with shit like this. And people believe it because, oh, he's got lots of books behind him and he went to university. Sadly, yes, lots of people go to university and get degrees. And a lot of them also can come out as complete and utter cranky dumbasses. This guy's kind of a crank.
So you are a man or a woman, and then a man who transitions to a woman is now a trans woman, but a biological man. There are many people who would be fine with that, but what occurs, let's try it and see if we can even, if they will even allow that to.
There are many people who would be fine with that. Problem is, I don't think you're one of them, Warren.
With that, but what occurs, let's try it and see if we can even, if they will even allow that to occur.
Someone of male sex and female gender.
Who's this we? I'm sorry, I was lost on that one.
Man, there are many people who would be fine with that, but what occurs, let's try it and see if we can even, if they will even allow that to occur.
Who's this they? Like the opposition? If the opposition will allow this to occur. And again, like this we, I don't honestly believe you believe this, so let's just ignore that. And you're trying to, the performative nature here is annoying as shit. I'm right, Cosby, because I brought up X topic, which has nothing to do with with the starting argument. Yeah, for the most part, yeah, that's been the issue. Or the big thing is, again, Professor Dave, and I'm not even sure I agree 100% with all the things that Professor Dave is talking about. There's been a couple of things where I think he's made some errors in language and discussion here. But at the very least, Professor Dave, in his video, is purely talking about a biological thing. He's just talking about how in the biological sciences and whatnot, they are using the term gender not as a perfect, substitute for sex. These two things are different. They refer to different phenomena. Sex refers to the biological phenomena, and gender refers to, in many ways, a biological phenomena, but a very specific one, the like the neurological structural phenomena. And these two things, your biology and the neurological structures in your brain, can be incongruent. That the biology of the rest of your body, or sexual organs, whatever, the development of other aspects, can be different from the neurological pathways that develop in your brain, and due to feminization and or masculinization in utero. That's what Professor Dave is talking about. And this very annoying individual seems hell-bent on making this constantly into the social cultural war context. It's purely sociological or cultural, and he keeps doing that, and then like pretending that somehow this other position is strange or weird. And you know what, there are transgender activists that are a bit more radical, that talk about gender identity not so much as biological, but purely a sociological, psychological phenomenon, and they want to change and blah, 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 blah. If he wants to argue with them, he needs to find a video of them saying that and then argue with those people. The fact that he's trying to use the flaws in the argument of a transgender activist that's not Professor Dave and use that to attack Professor Dave is dishonest.
Someone of male sex and female gender identity should be called a trans man. I have never heard that once.
Really? Because I just said that, but
No, you didn't. God, he does. He actually doesn't understand what is being said here. So let me explain. So this is the person who's denying transgender identity, blah, blah, blah. Yes, but I think that an individual of male sex and female gender identity should be called a trans man. That's not what Warren Smith just said at all. Because this is not what anti-trans activists or Matt Walsh or any of those people say. They never say that a transgender woman, in this case that would be, if you believe in transgender ideology, you would call this person a transgender woman, because the trans woman refers to their gender identity, and the trans part refers to basically the fact that their gender identity is incongruent with their biological sex. Say someone who is born of male sex and transitions to female gender identity is a trans woman. The transphobe or the anti-trans activist never ever calls that person a trans man. They say that they're a man. Always. Or a freak if they're being an asshole. Warren Smith did not say this. He doesn't even seem to acknowledge this. And the fact that he then says, well, I just said that, clearly shows he doesn't actually, his reading comprehension failed here. He doesn't understand what the concept of what Dave is trying to present here. He failed in his basic reading.
Man, I have never heard that once.
really? Because I just said that, but
To be clear,
No.
one could make the case that this is a defensible position. It is one that acknowledges every aspect of the science we described.
okay.
It is a strictly semantic position, though
Yeah, it is semantic. Whether you would say somebody is a trans woman or a trans man, it just depends on whether you're referring to they transitioned from the sex or transitioned in their gender. Again, it's technically it's not wrong. It can be rude because, again, sociologically we identify the words as having a different section there, but they never say that.
undoubtedly one that is callous and lacking empathy.
Okay, so now to do that, though, to play by your rules that you've just laid out, is callous and lacks empathy.
No, that's not what the rules he just set out, Warren. Not. That's not at all setting out the rules. There was no rules here. What the fuck is talk about rules? No, what he's simply saying is the framework is that they are, again, the callous and unempathetic. Again, callous, unempathetic, that's the sociological thing. Maybe Dave is getting a little fast and loose with that and should probably explain that. But again, if I were to refer to this person as a large-nosed individual, a big nose, that's not factually incorrect. It is, however, rude as shit because I'm somehow I'm somehow wanting to draw focus specifically to his nose, or we have a thing here. Who Knew Life was a video game and has rules. Like, yeah, even then, from the ideological standpoint, if you were to set up the rules of the argument that Professor Davis set up, that's not even the rules he was setting up. He might not explain them well, but again, this is just a good point there. But yeah, it's, again, that's kind of what Professor Dave is getting at, is that it's not incorrect for me to identify that this person, that Warren Smith, has a large, prominent nose. Me pointing that out and just deciding I want to describe you as that might be considered rude. We could take this further, is that as somebody is a professor at a university and then they retire, I could refer to that person as ex-professor blah blah blah, but it feels a little bit kind of weird to do. Even though it's factually correct, it feels a little weird. I should probably just refer to that person as a professor. or Mr. or something like that to avoid the weird like implication, because we're languages like that and we want to read into linguistic cues. For some reason we're cueing that. And again, the social norm that is being established is that you refer to this person, this type of person, male to female, as a trans woman. Referring to him as a trans man is not necessarily incorrect. It's just kind of rude. And again, maybe you don't mind being rude, but don't get upset when they say that you're being rude and somewhat bigoted, because rudeness is a form of bigotry to a certain extent.
Though undoubtedly one that is callous and lacking empathy.
Okay, so
The performative nature is also pissing me off.
now to do that, though, to play by your rules that you've just laid out, is callous and lacks empathy, though. You lay out these 4 categories, but then you say we can't use these 4 categories.
No, what he says is that I don't even know how that refers to the 4 categories at all, but whatever categories he was doing there, but he's saying that fuck it.
But it's totally moot because I have never heard anyone make this argument.
Yeah, that's the big thing also, is that's the reason why he's bringing it up. You know, maybe it would become acceptable to call somebody a trans woman a trans man if there was at all sincerity in this thing, to where I'm not saying this to say that you're bad or wrong or whatever. I'm simply calling you this is because that is the way in which I construct this linguistically. Or that's the science that I know. I just don't. It's exhausting, because again, honestly, he doesn't even say a lot.
Even you are using these categories to make this video because it would be impossible to explain this without using these categories.
He's using these categories to explain them. That doesn't mean that, like, again, I might use the N-word when I'm discussing Huck Finn. That doesn't mean that it's just okay and applicable to use all the time. He's using these terms, or he's trying to use these things in a, hey, here's the foundation of this. This is what we're talking about. Here's why we construct it in this way. Here's the logic behind it. That doesn't mean, and again, I don't even know, like, you don't even use these words correctly anyway, Warren. So why are you pissing and moaning? Oh, he's not being consistent. He doesn't need to be consistent if you guys don't even play the game. If you guys aren't even involved in this conversation in any way that makes sense.
Categories.
Or blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, male and female, cis and trans.
You have this scientist on Piers Morgan. When he does that very thing, you attack him.
They can say they're a woman, and I will respect their self-identification to the extent of using she and their preferred pronouns.
And yet it's still not enough.
But as a biologist, no.
So you're acknowledging their female gender identity and female pronouns and pretending that they somehow claim to be of female sex, which they don't, and nobody says that they are.
If this
Again, this is a bad framing by Warren Smith, because again, he doesn't seem to be understanding what Professor Dave is attacking that guy for. That guy was attacking, saying, oh, I'm a biologist, and I just can't acknowledge that they're biologically female. One, that's a nonsensical, again, that's just prejudice against them that has no basis, because they weren't claiming to be biologically female, or the majority of them are not. Majority of male to female transgender individuals are not claiming to be biologically female. At most, what they are claiming, and from the science, from Professor Dave's perspective, is that they are claiming, or at least they are having, the neurotypical pathways, which is a form of biology. So for a biologist to say, oh, they're not biologically female, is inaccurate. It's partly true, but it misses the part where the science would suggest that, yes, from a purely sex biological standpoint, they are not female, but the biology, the biological structure, the neurostructural nature of their again, their brains would suggest that there's feminization. Thus, in many ways, they are partly biologically female. So again, it is a quick and dirty and fast and ultimately inaccurate thing. I respect their gender identity. That does not mean that female sex, though. Again, one, that's not the claim that they're making. So why use this claim that they're not making to denigrate them? Because you are using this as a attack.
Of female sex, which they don't, and nobody says that they are.
If this response we just heard is not adequate, that is what you are doing, Professor Dave. It's the insistence that you're right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are they not supposed to insist they're right? They're not supposed to be. Again, this seems to be just responding to the. It's just a purely feelings responses. I don't like Professor Dave because he's an asshole by being right, and he's way too confident and something like that. And how dare he not accept and be perfectly open to my nonsensical arguments. And again, his commentary just doesn't ever seem to, and this is the problem with a lot of Warren Smith's videos. What I've seen is a lot of his commentary doesn't actually address anything that's being said in the video he's responding to.
Are doing, Professor Dave. It's the insistence that you're right is causing the pushback.
This is why discussion.
The pushback is not being caused by that, and if it is, it's like, I'm sorry that you're upset that somebody told you you're wrong and they didn't hold your fucking hand and baby you through this. And yeah, maybe again, I would critique Dave for this. Professor Dave is very mean with his thing, but I could partly understand it because, quite frankly, what the opposite side doesn't realize is how obstinately stupid and annoying and rude they have been, and quite frankly, just unsociable, antisocial. The opposition to a lot of these topics have been from right-leaning or weird libertarian or kind of weird centrists who are arguing against transgenderism or whatever is the new hot topic culture war thing. What they don't seem to acknowledge is how viciously mean, shitty, bad faith they have been through all this conversation. And now that you get, or in more prominence, some more liberal, left-leaning individuals who are kind of being mean back in their critique, also now it's like, oh, how dare you be mean? It's like, I'm sorry, you missed the entire conversation. The vast majority of your conversation, you have been a gigantic asshole, and now, towards the mid-end of this conversation, somebody is being mean to you and calls you an asshole, and you're all of a sudden clutching pearls.
With transphobes never goes anywhere. They are totally disinterested in dialogue. They are constant.
And the great irony here is what Professor Dave is talking about.
Anywhere. They are totally.
Again, Warren Smith is exactly like this. He's a bit more calm or whatever, but again, he's having an imaginary argument. He's arguing with something that Professor Dave is not saying. Because he only wants to argue on one framework. He wants to play soccer, and Professor Dave is playing basketball.
Disinterested in dialogue. They are constantly
Yeah, nobody says trans woman is of a female sex. Nobody really says that. And you know what? And you know what? There probably are. But you know what? There's also crazy people who say the earth is flat. I'm not going to take them as being the standard for all discourse. I'm sure there's some people, some trans activists who might say this to a certain degree. They're not in the majority.
Having an imaginary argument with a fabricated opposing view that they've concocted in their minds.
What your little illustration here shows, that's exactly what you're saying when you make a statement like that.
What?
There are people who are so concocted in their minds.
What your little illustration here shows, that's exactly what you're saying when you make a statement like that.
I'm not even. I don't know what to address with that. I'm genuinely actually confused what the fuck he's trying to say. Like he tried to make it sound meaningful and a gotcha, but I have no idea what he's trying to get him on.
there are people who are so angered by this and so off-put by this and want to fight this so bad. They don't want there to be trans people. They just don't want it to be a thing that exists.
To acknowledge that as a logical flaw doesn't mean that I don't want trans people to exist.
It's a
It kind of does. Because if you believe it is a logical flaw, you don't like logical flaws. You would want logical flaws to be resolved. You would obviously say that logical flaws are themselves flaws, and by acknowledging it as a flaw, you are saying it's bad. It is not something that is optimal, good, or it needs fixing. This is kind of like this whole "won't someone rid me of this troublesome priest," which is a great little historical thing. What was that? King Henry, one of the I think it was Henry, one of the Henrys in England, says that after the Bishop of Canterbury, Archbishop of Canterbury, basically was not allowing Henry to do what he wanted and was being somewhat of a political stick in the mud. It's somewhat apocryphal, somewhat kind of ahistorical, or it's unclear exactly what he might have said or whatnot, but Henry says, "Won't someone rid me of this troublesome priest," in court, which then two noblemen, taking that as kind of a hint, hint, wink, wink, the king is suggesting this, go out and kidnap and murder the Bishop of Canterbury. And I believe they were actually pardoned. I think they received some light punishment, were ultimately pardoned by Henry. Even though Henry kind of says, "Well, I didn't want him dead." It's like this, you kind of did. And in this case, again, you're saying you want the conclusion of transgender people not existing and not coming about, but you just are unwilling to actually say that because you know that looks bad. So instead, you'll just say, "Well, I don't want that. I just think it's logically flawed and inconsistent." Okay. You want the world to be logically consistent. And do you believe that is a moral and ethical and like philosophical good to be morally consistent? Yes. Okay. So what is to be done with these troublesome transgenders? What is to be done? You don't want to finish the thought, but the thought is there. And these guys absolutely want, especially this asshat, Matt Walsh, has said colloquially and certainly have said multiple times, he is perfectly fine with transgender people not existing by any means necessary. Again, this guy's a Christian nationalist, fundamentalist asshole. Genuinely a bad person. So is this guy. Literally just Steven Crowder, there his name is. Steven Crowder. Gigantic transphobic asshole. Ben Shapiro, absolutely. He takes the more Warren Smith route, where I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, X, Y, and, if somebody gets to Z, I mean, that's not what, I'm not saying we need to go to Z. I'm just laying the foundation for it.
Deliberate caricature of reality peddled by all the angry conservative dudes popping up in my feed lately who claim that nobody can define a woman.
If we can't even explain this to a child, if a child can't ask what is a woman, it's too complicated to even communicate with.
We actually can. It's actually pretty easy. And more importantly, I'm sorry, are we now that is the basis for all truth, is whether or not a child can understand it? Again, this is one of those weird naturalistic fallacies that a lot of people like this kind of go to, is that it's if the idea can't be reduced to where a child can understand it, then the idea is not good. Like, well, that's a pithy little comment that some science teachers have made in the past to just indicate if you can't explain something in a more simplistic, straightforward manner, then you don't understand it well enough. But it has nothing to do whether or not the idea is itself valid. But again, that's a teaching thing. And even then, like, sorry, a child can't understand this. My son understands gravity, so I guess he'll just float away. Well, it's even worse like this. Well, if I can't explain gravity to them, then yeah, the idea of gravity is nonsensical. That's the issue. Yeah, that's the issue right there. Is Again, this is just stupid. Like, we're basing the validity of an argument, at least partly, on whether or not a child can understand it. No, 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 sorry.
Language. It's like,
So when someone asks, what is a woman, expecting to get a very simple answer that children can understand, they are sorely mistaken. The answer requires a discussion of genetics and neurochemistry.
I think this is where you're going to lose people when you start claiming that men can have babies.
Or
What? Okay, I'm trying to. I can follow the logic, sort of, with that. Is that he's trying to give an example of how this conversation would lose. Yes, it would lose common people. But so what? Like, if you start talking about quantum mechanics or anything like that to the average Joe, they're not going to fucking understand a goddamn lick of it. That doesn't mean that quantum mechanics is wrong. If I start talking about, like, postmodernist Foucauldian power dynamics, and kind of that perspective, people are going to be lost immediately. That doesn't mean that there isn't merit to that kind of perspective. That just means, like, yeah, congratulations. The American education system sucks. And most common education systems aren't particularly great. Congratulations. If you tell men, men can't have babies, males cannot have baby. Yes, yes, we tell shorthand lies to students and young children because they can't handle large scale complicated things. That doesn't mean that I'm going to treat every single adult walking around the world as a child. If you don't understand it as an adult, you should try to understand it. Put in the work to understand it. If you can't or are unwilling to do that, then you should just accept that that is true because you aren't willing to go through the effort to prove it's wrong. Sorry, that's kind of how it goes.
men can't have babies, or you can't change your gender, all of which are expressions of willful ignorance.
Trans man can have a baby. You don't allow for those different categories. This is what happens. It leads to a statement as nonsensical as this.
There was nothing nonsensical about that. And again, it leads to a statement. Again, it's transmitted again. I'm not even sure what he's arguing against or for at this point, because again, he's just, again, entirely obstinately, childishly resistant to the framework that Professor Davis set up. So he's not even engaging with it anymore.
And I don't think it's fair to call that willful ignorance.
It is willful fucking ignorance. If you are unwilling, i.e., unwilling to engage with this, understand its perspective, and to understand the logic and the truths behind it, you are willfully being ignorant of that. Willful ignorance also, maybe Professor Dave meant this, but I'm not going to mean it this way. Willful ignorance does not mean that you are correct or incorrect. You are incorrect in the sense of your process, in your perspective, in the approach you take, but your conclusion and summation, whatever you might have, might actually be still correct. That doesn't matter because being willfully ignorant is the flaw of it is inherent in the act, not in just the product. So, like, say I could believe 2 + 2 = 4, and somebody says, no, it equals 5 because of this theory. If I refuse to engage with that theory, if I'm unwilling to even entertain it or to examine it and to critique it and defend my position in contrast to them, I am being willfully ignorant. And I am technically in the wrong. Now, I can solve this by engaging with the idea, at least for a few minutes, trying to play with it, trying to, in good faith, see how it works. And if it doesn't work still, or if I'm finding immediately tons and tons of flaws with it and I point them out, I'm not willfully ignorant. Bad video, Warren. Bad video. Well, that was intensely frustrating. just bad. God damn, these right-leaning individuals, or these centrists, as they might call themselves, are just absolutely horrendously, willfully ignorant. There it is. You know, they're willfully ignorant. All right. That was enough productivity for one day. Ugh. Ugh. I don't know. Whatever. It is what it is. You can't change these people because they are obstinate and willfully ignorant of all things, and they do not want to change. To change would be to imply that they were wrong in the first place. That's just not going to happen with these types. All right. Let's play some video games. That was enough. That was enough for me. Let's change our category to... We've been playing some of this, Tainted Grail. We're going to need to that going here. There we are. Play some of this weird Skyrim-like first-person stuff. It's been pretty fun. I've been enjoying it. It's got some okay builds. The combat's all right. Not amazing, but it's all right. Story's fun. Ugh. Ugh. And wash that anti-intellectual, pseudo-intellectual bullshit out of my brain. Do that by killing some goblins and some evil people here. Ugh. Oh. Where were we in this? I don't remember where I was. Takes a second to load up the first time you jump in here. Seen this stuff about the game, but I've been playing too much Night Rain to pay attention to it. It's actually pretty decent. It's a little double A, so there's some jank, some roughness edges here and there. But overall, I would say I am relatively impressed at the size, at the scope of it, the kind of systems.
Exiled from my home by the Red Death. My struggle continues on the holy island.
The fuck is that? He's new. The combat systems are fine. They're interesting. Harry works okay. Not great. But the story is fun. It's a fun kind of dark alternate King Arthur and the Round Table kind of setting. But I don't know. Voice acting has been decent. There's been a couple performances here and there that are a little bit not great, but for the most part, it's pretty solid. The writing's okay. Story's fine. I think it's good.
Set an example for other outcasts with your faith and with your testimony. The word is our only chance to rid ourselves of the plague's taint. And if the word commands you to kill your brothers for spreading heresy, do so, for such is his way.
This guy's never been here.
If the word commands you to besmirch your father's name, do so and discard your sullied.
Just don't know why he showed up. And he's just not going to stop talking. Are you done? I guess he's done. All right. Okay. Good. Good on you, buddy. What build do I have? Oh, yeah, I changed my build around. I'm going more mage route. I'm not sure if I'm super jonesed about the mage. It's okay. Early on, it's better than the melee stuff, but melee, I think, actually starts beating it out quite a bit later. Let's level up real quick. Enough spirituality, practicality. Dexterity there. Go. Strength. Just a little bit more strength. Skill tree's more important than anything else, really. What else did I... Anything else I'm not up here? Not. Ones and cubes. We do have... We could get more mana shield. Misusing two-handed stuff, but I'm not really set up for two or for two-handed. One-handed is okay. Nothing in perception is really floating my boat. Everything we would want there, everything we want there. Let's go get some more mana sheet. We buy a bunch of points in here. We might as well put some of them in. That one is definitely good. King Soul, let's and that's good for resource generation. Save the rest. Okay. I have crap in my inventory. Not so much. Alright. We have a bunch of little mini quests we could still do. All those are in the new area. Can't find this Four Dweller's Finger. I have no idea where that's going to be. But I think it's time to head on main quest. That would be... Where do we go for that? Northern Gate or do the Southern Gate? There we are. Enter the Forlorn Sports. Area 3. I think this is the final area. I feel like eventually we got to fight this big crow here. A big weird crow in the sky. He keeps showing up. I don't know. I haven't fought him yet, but he keeps showing up throughout the game. I feel like he's got to be a boss eventually. Visit all the main regions. Yep. I missed. Occasionally there's a little hiccup in the frame rate when you start a new area and you start attacking, doing stuff, but that usually clears out. Are you friendly? You're not. Oh my. Hold on one second. I do have the blood ring on. Okay, good. This is a very tough bear. My word. And the bear is just Running away? Alright. Hey, bear, you want to fight, or... Nope, the bear just wants to dance. There we are. Alright. You just dancing bear. Hello, lady. Alma.
Until next time.
Oh, yes, Alma. I already... Yeah. You're the alchemist. You just moved here. Okay. Gotcha. Druidic... Oh. To a frost ogre, eh? Wow, they increased the life on this by a lot. Because these guys normally die a lot easier. So that is something I've noticed with this game, is the transition from Area 1 to Area 2, Area 2 to Area 3 now. The DPS, or check, the kind of the damage you're doing, is pretty substantial. Like, that's a huge jump, honestly. Take a look at the map. What are we looking at here? Where do we need to go? Down there. Misgivings is up there. Let's finish up Misgivings. Put on our dual wands, which is not ranged, in case you were wondering. There. Just bash them. They do have a passive effect on them that help out with spell casting to a certain degree. Most of it I'm not... I don't think is very strong. More often now, you're better just having 2 spells in your hand than a spell and a wand. But every once in a while, the spell and the wand is fine. We got a Misty Boy here. Nope, a Brimshade. What the fuck is a Brimshade? He's beating the shit out of me. Where are you? There you are. Alright, so you're just a fire version of the Mist Boys I've seen before. Good enough. I can dig it.
Look, Raylan, the alchemist's little lady sent her lapdog.
Oh, that's very quiet.
So, dog, speak. Got the gold.
I do. Let's make the trade and be on our way.
Raylan, check it. Not much. You heard him. We lost 3 of our brothers on this job. You think we could just go back to the village and say they died so we can walk away with a handful of coins?
You got a really rough voice there. Double it. Oh, let's throw this at him. How do your how do your ancestors look upon you trading the lives of your kin for coin?
How dare you?
He's right for. Let's hand him the cursed thing and be off. Nothing left for us here.
You're lucky today, stranger. Pray we never cross paths again.
All right. Well, we might cross paths again, so maybe you don't want to threaten me, because I kill people for, honestly, a hobby at this point. I was going to say a living, At this point, it's kind of more like a... Oh yeah, these things are way stronger. Not in like a bad sense, mind you. Ah. I hate these fucking things, by the way. Annoying little shits. They jump and bounce about and their hitboxes are deceptively tiny. Kind of ore? Copper ore? I'll take copper. Always got to be on the lookout for titanium ore. Oh, hey, bear. Stay over there, bear, and I won't have to kill you. I think Alma is my return point. Deal's done. Have the brain you were looking for.
You did it. Wonderful. I don't think I need to hear the details of that meeting. What matters is that it's all behind us now. I'm deeply grateful. Here's a reward for your efforts. I'll soon begin my more extensive research on the brain centers of all 4 subjects. Oh, and one more thing. You've proven yourself trustworthy, so you'll find a few special items in my shop now. Perhaps something will catch your interest?
Yeah. What you got? What you got in here? Thunderlash I already have. Blazing Orb I already have. Toxic Dart. Medium Poison, Great Poison. I'll take that. I don't have that. Frost Needle. I have, but I don't care about. Buy all the basic ingredients. Think I have anything to sell from my stash? Not really. I just got that one. It's okay. What's the next?
You've already done so much. Thank you for that. That said, there's one more thing you could help me with.
Mm-hmm.
The guild has been trying to get in touch with Dolph Jonquier for a while now. He went missing somewhere in the Forlorn Swords. All I know is that he was supposed to be conducting research in the territory of the Sven tribe. We need to make sure he's safe and sound.
Can do. I'll do my best.
I appreciate it. Once you find him, ask him to provide a report on his research and bring it back to me. I'll pass it along to the right people. Don't worry, there's nothing suspicious about this. It's standard practice. Every member of the Alchemist Guild is required to submit these reports from time.
Okay.
Until next.
Good enough. I wasn't thinking it was suspicious until you told me not to think it was suspicious. So now I'm thinking it's suspicious, but that's just me. All right. Well, new area, new place to explore. We have this area up there that's starting to look very city-like, but this also could be unfolding. What is my main quest called? Long Defeat. Wow, that's really far away. Let's go up here. This could be a city, or it could just be a monster settlement, but let's go up here. That gateway right there could be something. Friend? Friend? It's a village. Hey, Vadi.
Rita, wandering through these frigid lands. It takes courage, or perhaps folly, to traverse the Forlorn Swords alone. Sit, if it pleases you. A warm flame is rare here. The farther north you go, the less life you'll find. Nothing but snow, mountains, and the Dalrita, mourning days long gone.
Okay. You travel alone as well.
I'm an old Dalrita. I couldn't care less anymore. You, though? You look like someone who's never had to scoop snail roe from a fiend's guts. My advice, leave them be. And if you're fool enough to poke one, run like hell while you still can. They tend to explode.
Okay. Who are you?
I am Vati. Little else of me is worth knowing. Yet, you asked as though you seek some greater tale. Not in my case, stranger. I'm just an old man, exiled from a tribe long ago.
I doubt that.
You, however, seem sharp, strong, and you're not from here. That much is clear. Now, it's you I'm curious about. So tell me, what brings you to the Forlorn Swords?
I wish to understand the nature of what dwells in me. Sure.
Hey, that's a proper question to ask. And perhaps there's no better place to lose oneself entirely in such a quandary. I once knew a man who faced a dilemma. It lingers with him to this day. Luck was not on his side in finding answers to his questions. Gerfan is his name. A good man. You should meet him. I think he'd gladly have a chat with you.
What happened in this village?
They butchered almost everyone from the Gunvaldir tribe. Old Frode, Gunvaldir chief, knew the Camelosians were coming. He called for aid, but no one answered his plea. Now, his firstborn wages his own war in the south. The Dalrita dared not speak his name aloud.
You call him One Eye now. Last I heard, his people had taken the Temple of... Yeah, well, I saw that. Why did Camelot attack?
Among the Dalrita, there were rumors that their giants had begun to stir. Hard to say how much truth there is to it. Look for yourself. Still sleeping like the dead. Camelot may have feared it, though. A wakened giant would have been just another burden on their already troubled heads. And royalist heads seem far less suited to carrying burdens. That's how I see it.
Battle took place?
No. What happened here was a slaughter. The battle itself was fought in the fortress. Folks lose their wits there. For as long as I recall, restless Dalbats, then the Gunvaldir decided to look after them. They claimed the fortress.
Decided to look after those souls?
Gunvaldirs had close ties to the spirits of their ancestors. They took in those forgotten as their own, forging a bond with them. In return, the spirits granted them strength, sometimes even coming to their aid. Frode and his people thought moving the battle within the fortress walls would give them advantage. The only tribe living close enough were the Ulfar, but trust me, most would rather raise a toast to their ancestors than meddle with their spirit. Let the dead remain.
I met One Eye in the south. He's still fighting?
It's surprising he's still alive, I won't deny. But I understand how he gathered loyal. They break away and rally to the banner of the proud warlord. I was once a scribe, and true to my call, I have little contact with the tribe. You'd be better off discussing.
Alright, good enough. Nice talk. I see nothing. I have nothing to pray or offer there, I guess, so alright. What else we got in here? Any treasure? Treasure? Stone tablet of resolve. Sure. I'll take some years old food. I'm sure it's still good. So I put the stone tablet here. Nope. All right. Just making sure. Just seeing. Got here. Looks like a bunch of crap to me. Shockingly tough. Yeah, once you get the procs on them, they do take quite a bit of damage. Yeah, but this build is not that strong for melee, actually. It's fine. Realistically, I should just be using just mage stuff. That's what I'm built for, but I kind of want to do Spellblade, but Spellblade's kind of wonky-ish. Like, it's actually really good, it's just you end up being more blade than spell. And that kind of... yeah, it's kind of hard to duel both there. Let's clear out this village, I think. Like, that is... I am a little shocked. That should be just doing so much more damage, and boy, is it not. We'll try the electric spell. It's kind of fun. It's a little janky to use, this electric thing. The Stormcaller spell. Kind of wish it wasn't so janky, but... you lay these things on the ground. Then you call in the stuff on it. And oftentimes they just simply dodge away. Yeah. It's not great. This build right here tends to work quite a bit better. The body was... hold on, I saw the body for a second of this invisible guy, but now he's invisible. Even more so. Alright. Yeah, we're definitely going to have to level up and get some serious damage increase. Because I am not doing a lot. I probably should have stuck with my two-hander build. I keep using origin potions to reset my skills. I should just stick with it. I just kind of miss not being able to use spells, but I feel like the spells are kind of dropping off. I need to specialize more into it and have more damage increase on my spells, because I'm just not doing the damage I need for it to be viable. Because, like, that should just do a lot more. I should do quite a bit more, and it's just not doing it. Whee! Yeah. I might end up having to... because if we look at my damage here, like, it's only 173% spell power, and it should probably be closer to, like, 300 base. Like, it's just not doing a lot. I do have skills that when I start the fight, I start doing more and more damage, and that helps out quite a bit. But it is not... That's not bad damage.
You're into a world of hurt.
We'll bash him up a little bit. We'll take some of their stuff. See what it sells for eventually. I'll take some of their stuff.
We're not alone. You're only making me angrier. I'll make you pay for that.
And we got this guy firing bullshit at me.
It's ours.
And would you just get hit already? You're pissing me off just a wee bit. Just a wee bit. Is the leather hood worth picking up? No. Not at all. Didn't think so. Dead bear.
We have company.
There we go. The hell am I? I'm just circling about. I can see the circle. Yeah. Nice. All right. Well, big loop. So we have the destroyed village there. We got the Call of Wintermoon there, and then we got that right there. Well, let's keep heading south. See if we can find the major city. That way we can have access to, you know, teleports and also just general goods and services.
You're in for a world of hurt.
There we are. Gotta get the timing on that a little right. Oh, overweight. What's these things weighing? 3 pounds? 2.6. 6. What about feet? How are these? Oh, these are terrible. Terrible. Alright, so feet. Chest is really the only thing that's worthwhile for this. Good for weight ratio, actually. How about this? 2, that's fine. That's fine. 5 pounds for 2. Bad, actually. I'll keep it just for the collection.
Your wealth is ours.
Oh, it took me off my main weapons here.
Your wealth is ours.
He's dead. Drop one of those. Do need to find something soon. I don't need to rob this grave. It's not really worth it. I will rob this, though. Really need to stop picking up stuff. Yeah. Did I drop the club? Wait. Suppose we could try using the toxic dart. Did I drop? No, I didn't. There it is. Let's get rid of the club. Products will stay. So let's test out our new spell here, which is what, this guy? Toxic dart. Life transfusion. Rather just do that. I'll leave that camp for now. Yep, nighttime. Man, poison does not want to proc on these guys at all. It's actually kind of annoying. Where are you? Stop leaping about. Yeah, we're really heavy here. And let's just drop a couple of big things. We don't really need... We'll drop the repeats. Drop... You're a repeat, you're a repeat. You're a repeat. There we go, we got some room. Not great damage. But not the worst damage. I'm assuming this is the direction I need to go. New enemy type here. We're heavy again. We're light. Oh, something's keeping them alive. What's keeping them alive? Ah, it's you. Interesting. Okay. Let's see, they drop a bow, they drop meteorite ore. All pretty good. Common. Alright. Need to drop some crap here. Great. Up the war pick. Keep these things just for the collection. We're overweight by quite a bit here. Just right. We need to go to the stronghold. It's good to know we have this bridge. Go left. I need to go down somehow. Well, this looks maybe promising. A little bit of ouch parkour. Oh, it's looking less promising. That's looking very unpromising. Oh, but I could have something. Somewhere in here, yeah, I'm running out of origin potions. There's a reason for my madness here. I thought I had like a feather fall potion, but maybe I don't. Damn. Well, I might actually be screwed here because I've dropped down about as far as I can. Every other drop is going to kill me. Might be able to... Ouchie, kind of. Oh shit. Yeah, there it is. Alright, so is that just a death drop, or the fuck am I... Where am I going? Like, that seems to be the only path down to get to that region, so where the fuck am I going? Okay. Really only need one of those. Alright, so now let's look at the map again. I guess what is there? So that looks like a bridge. We just go across this way, do some Mountain climbing parkour. He was confused. I guess we just follow the road. Right? Yeah, we just follow the road. Wretched hideout. There we go. Now we're getting some damage in. Felt like we were kind of doing dog shit damage for a while there. And things to drop. Okay, keep going. I don't want to talk to you. Just want to find a village. I want to find a safe place. Put up my feet for a second or two. And then these guys are super tough. And poison just doesn't work with them at all. Like, the poison spells do not proc poison at all. Like, I've tried to make it work. It does not work. Poison just sucks. Scrap iron is dead. Ooh, excellent titanium throwing knife. Sower of Plague, Ulfers. Well, that's all gonna be very heavy, isn't it? Damn it. I'm just gonna need to get on my horse and ride past everything. Yeah. Sucks, but that's literally what we're gonna have to do. You took a beating. I'll give you that. You took a goddamn beating. There's a lot of parkour there to get stuff. I'll get it eventually, but... I'm just gonna call my horse. Hey, horse. Bye. So long, and thanks for all the fish. I'm thinking a left, right? Yeah. Obviously. And we're just gonna run. Yep. Just keep following the road. Oh, for fuck's sake. You have got to be fucking joking. Oh, for fuck's sake, on a fucking cracker. Just fucking die, you piece of dog fucking water shit. So fucking annoying. Ah, great. We got a croaker thing here. Fine. Come on, lock on. There we go. And not super difficult, just annoying. My damage can be alright, it's just, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Oh, shit. This doesn't lead up, does it? Alright, not what I wanted. We need the bridge right over there. Alright, so let's try getting over there. And we need that right there. That bridge. Primordial beast. It was a big beast. I'm thinking you can get up kind of going along that path right there. All right. Almost there. And we're going to take a right. Keep running. Bridge. Alright, this better be the goddamn city or something. Teleport. Hey.
I sensed your approach, my king. I, Gurfan of the Gunvaldir tribe, salute you as my forefathers decreed.
How do you know I'm not alone?
So you're still speaking with your own voice. Good. At least I won't have to bother with that formal drivel Camelot loves so much. Tell me, how does it work with the two of you? Does the king speak through you sometimes? Or is he just a passenger in your head? Will he ever come out and talk to me face to face? Or does he just sit there quietly, never getting involved? Either way, I've got a few things to say to him. Not exactly polite ones.
We talk in specific conditions.
So he won't be speaking. Still too weak, is he? Not surprising. Well, then give my regards to the old man. Tell him the Gunvaldir tribe stayed loyal to the old treaties right to the end. The same can't be said of the Camelocians. Pack of cowardly dogs without honor. I hope Arthur's squirming in your head, seeing what his beloved capital has been up to.
What kind of treaties did you have with Arthur?
Normal ones. Honorable. He entrusted us with the forlorn swords and his crown, the one he used to command giants. We were sworn to guard them. In return, Camelot was supposed to leave us alone, now and forever. But the Camelocians didn't hold up their end of the deal. May their souls rot in the weirdness. Can you hear me, Arthur? The treaty is rubbish. I'm rallying the tribes, and we're marching on Camelot. Nothing can stop us anymore. Except ourselves, damn it.
King Arthur wants to reclaim his helm. I came here for Arthur's helm, sure.
He's barely gotten his life back, and not even all of it. Does he have a death wish or something? There's a passage, sure. And if you're Arthur, it will open for you. Go ahead, if you think you're strong enough. Nobody's gonna stop you. But let me warn you, it's not gonna be an easy journey, or a short one.
What do you mean?
The giants are asleep, at least on the surface. But below, what if they wake up when they see Arthur? I doubt they'll be happy. And if the giants weren't enough, there are still the monsters, and other surprises. The legends about this place make it all pretty clear. If I were you, I wouldn't go in there. At least, not until you're sure you have the strength to, or without the blessing of the tribes. As agreed, 600. You'd know that if you remembered our
Blessing of the tribes.
The funny thing about our king, as you may already know, was that he was pretty sure of himself and his abilities. He knew he could march in there, grab his crown whenever he wanted, so he didn't sweat when he made a deal with our ancestors. He said he'd come back for his royal hat, only if the kingdom was in a dire situation, and if all tribes agreed to let him. Traditionally, this was meant to be done during a moot, an assembly, and I'm calling one, so we can help each other out.
What do you need?
Well, I need the chieftains to come here, because we have to agree on a united front if we're going to fight Camelot. And I want to make damn sure that we fight Camelot not as a solitary tribe, like hot-headed One-Eye once, but as a united force. But I'm worried that something might be keeping them from leaving.
Tribes listens to outsider?
Our tribes aren't exactly known for, but now they've left Gunvaldir in its time of, that's why you have to shame them even more. And if they say they won't come because, then you'll deal with a because. Exactly. I'll be waiting as a gun.
All right. Well, this isn't a city. Is it? There might be a city over there. So I guess, horse, we're going for a little bit more of a run. Lord knows my ass is a little sore from all this running and riding. But okay. Now I'm atop this mountain, and I don't think there's any way for me to get down effectively, is there? Well, hold on. Is this a... That is... Oh. Well, that's nice. It's actually an elevator. Lovely. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, all right. Now we just need our daisy. Well, let's see what, I think this is just copper, right? Right. Iron. Close enough. Alright. Come on, Daisy. Why does everything have to be so goddamn hard to reach? Better be a fucking elevator or something here. It is good. Horse? Horse! Oh, he's fine. Oh. You okay there, Daisy? Yeah, you're okay. You just kind of squished, didn't you? A little bit of a squishy there. All right. And she's back. Good, Daisy. Good. All right. There's got to be a city, right? There's got to be a town. Open the gates.
Not another step. You. Who are you? And why do you...
I need to speak with your people.
Not here, you don't. Ulfraland ain't for outsiders. Trust me, I wouldn't let you in if you were King Arthur himself. Especially not him. He'd have us...
That's the matter, Governor. Sent me.
Looks real enough. We don't take kindly to outsiders.
Don't take kindly to outsiders. Nobody takes kindly to outsiders. You're not special.
Hey, you. Gaffon sent you, didn't he? To summon us for...
Orlis, how do you know?
We live up in the mountains doesn't mean we don't... Well, that works out perfectly. My father's been looking... That's all I know. He didn't tell me much, but his name is Strana.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Give me a shop. That just leads outside of the building. I don't want to go outside of the building. Come on, Daisy. You can make it. You can make it. You can make it. It's a little tight, but you can make it. All right. Stash right there. You can drop some stuff in there. Probably make us light enough. We will drop one of those, one of those, one of those, one of those, one of those. I didn't even look at this. Heavily poisoned enemies, so are the plague. Practicality, it's okay damage. Great. That. Put a reflex blow because I don't remember if I have one. Titan steel, yep. 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 Ah, so much lighter. All right. anything that looks like a merchant. Merchants on the outside doesn't look like it. All of Stone Wardens, that could be a possibility. No. Earth Hall, that's just the main meeting place. Probably where the I need to talk to is. Negative. Does have the look of a shop, though. There's nobody here. What about you? What have we got in here? Another goddamn shop. Wait.
Nah, you're the outside. We don't talk to many outsiders. But if you're here, I share the forge with Stroner. If you need something, and who would we be talking? The Gunval. On that, I guarantee.
A shop. All right. So we got some increased damage. 50% if enemy is chilled. Kill an enemy. You trigger an icy explosion, dealing 100 damage, applying chill. Applies chill to enemies within 3 meters every 5 seconds. You have 25 chance to apply chill on hit. Increase health regeneration by 3. Any health is below 15. The chill is interesting. Not bad. Critical hits restore 25 mana. When you have full stamina, deal 20% more damage. Okay. Increase armor by 25% when your mana is below 20%. Increase max mana by 20. Titanium stuff. Wing Cavalier. Increases physical damage by 100% when your health is below 20%. Critical chance by 25. You have more stamina than health. Your physical damage is increased by 25%. You have more health than stamina. Your critical damage is increased by 50%. Interesting. Increase movement speed by 50% when your stamina is low. Increase physical damage by 10%. Increase physical damage by 10%. Okay. Spell. Increase spell power by 0.5%. Increase spell power by... Oh, each point of missing mana. Okay. Movement speed multiplier when your mana is below 50%. Spell power by 15. Critical damage, spell power. So that's 30 is 55. Some seer stuff we can't really read more of. Okay. All right. Well, at least we have that. All right, I think we're going to save it here, and we're actually going to call it a quits. I know it was a bit early, but it's short stream, but we want to get some work done. I'm just about finishing up my Substack article. One of the many I've been working on. I started like 6, and I've been trying to finish all of them all at once, which is a terrible way to work, but kind of way my brain decided to do it. But we'll have this next big one. We'll put that up there. It's not great. It's just kind of a general overview of some concepts that I'm dealing with or talking about or thinking about, and then some prescriptions or, critical thinking things. I hate describing my work, mainly because I don't think it's particularly amazing, but basically talking about an issue that I see when it comes to the notion of the vulnerable student, moral panics, and the melodrama of the moral panic, and how this is kind of played out a bit in academia, when the moral panic is about the vulnerability of students and the need to protect them, and the story we tell ourselves to do so, and how this is creating something of a problem kind of across the board, and even a unique and rather strange development of that problem. But we're going to go ahead and we'll save here. Sure. And we will pick this up next time. Until then, thank you all for being here. Thank you for hanging out. And until next time, I hope you have a good one.